My name is Nicola Harvey and I work with TUSLA here in Donegal. I'm one of a group of people from different services across the county who are known as Parent Support Champions. I'm joined this evening by another Parent Support Champion, Michelle Maguire from Foróige. The Parent Support Champion project is about supporting parents by providing them with evidence-based information, and we do this through promoting key messages for parents through initiatives like this today. For more information on parenting, you can go to Parenting 24/7 or mychild.ie. The Parent Support Champions have been running these talks for a number of years now, and the interest in the talks is growing all the time. This year, we'll be recording the talks and making them available in the coming months, thanks to funding we received through a new parent support initiative under the HSE Community Health Care Area 1 and the Children and Young People Services Committees. As a result of this, our reach is widening now to include parents across Cavan, Leitrim, Sligo, Monaghan, as well as Donegal. We know that there's parents logged in also from across other counties, and we'd like to welcome every one of you here this evening. There will be an opportunity for questions at the end of the talk, and if you want to put these into the Q&A, Michelle and I will put these to the speaker at the end on your behalf. We're absolutely delighted to have Helga Tinney with us this evening. Helga is a family visitor and training officer with Life Start Services here in Donegal. Helga has many years of experience working with parents of children in the early years age group. She has delivered many talks with us in the past and was involved also in the development of 6 short videos on the importance of play. Finally, we promote all our talks through the Parent Hub Donegal Facebook page, so if you want to be kept up to date, give the page a like. Without further ado, I'll pass you over to Helga. Thanks.
Thanks, Nicola. Hi, everybody. You're very welcome to this evening's talk, Supporting Parents Awaiting Assessment and Diagnosis, where hopefully we're all working together, growing together and supporting each other. The main focus, I suppose, of tonight's webinar is really, it's the importance of the parent-child relationship, during this time where we are awaiting maybe assessment and diagnosis. And I suppose for us as parents to acknowledge that we are best placed to help and support our children within the home learning environment whilst we are awaiting professional intervention and early intervention for our children. Now, so the journey itself, awaiting assessments, diagnosis, or any follow-up for our children can be extremely daunting and a very challenging time for parents, for children, and for families as a whole. The waiting list can be very long, as we know, and we can often feel unsure or unsupported during this transitional time. It's often a period of uncertainty, and it can take its toll in many ways. And but this doesn't have to be the way. It doesn't have to take as much of a negative impact on us as families and parents. Taking control of our journey from assessment to conclusion or diagnosis can empower us as parents and provide our children with a great many benefits. As we all know, as parents, early intervention is key. And we as parents are best placed to provide a positive, progressive period of rich learning experiences for our children during this time. What can we do as parents? How do we hold space for ourselves, and how do we hold space for our children during this time, especially when we're just maybe not sure what to do? It's important that we never ever lose sight of our child. They are unique children regardless of their presentation. Their need for assessment does not define them. So if we look at a strengths-based approach to parenting, we as parents, we should see, our child's abilities before we see their challenges. And if we build upon their already existing skills to enhance their development and embrace their challenges along the way, it's a much more powerful tool for progression than focusing only on their challenges. So different abilities or developmental delay. As parents, it's really important to remember that not all signs are symptoms of a different ability, and that different abilities do not always have the signs we expect. So remember that every child is different, and our support of all children needs to reflect this. Two children with the same diagnosis will not have the same presentation. So just meet every individual child where they're at and accept them for who they are. Some children may show differences in reaching their milestones in comparison to their peers or siblings. And these milestones could include their social development, their emotional development, physical, intellectual, and sensory development. And we may notice differences in how a child moves, how they communicate, how they think, or how they feel, and how they express these needs to us as parents. But differences, as we know, make the world go round, and it's important that we as parents reframe how we see differences. Differences are not negative traits. They are simply individual differences. Seeing additional needs or differences from positive eyes helps more than just us as parents. It enriches our relationship with our child, and it enhances their feelings about themselves, their self-esteem, and their confidence. When our children feel good about themselves, they can be the best version of themselves. And that is where they're going to flourish and develop at a pace that is best suited to them. Just remembering their individual differences. So when we look at our children's milestones, particularly in the early years, not reaching milestones at a particular age is not always indicative of an additional need. Not all children reach their milestones at the same age. We as parents need to reframe how we see differences. And if we see if we can see our child differently, we will definitely see a different child. So focus on their abilities rather than their challenges. Fear and worry plays a huge part in a parent's journey. This is completely understandable, especially when we're experiencing long waiting times for access to services. And that can have a huge impact on us as parents. But being proactive and positive will hopefully alleviate some of this stress, regardless of the length of waiting times. Being proactive and practical as parents, it's important that we keep up to date with all referrals and appointments. We need to be fully aware as to who your point of contact is within whatever service you are with or whatever service you're waiting on. Familiarize yourself with all the professionals who have been assigned to your child's team, the OT, occupational therapist, PT, physiotherapist, SLT, speech and language therapist, your PHN, public health nurse. Know what each of these individual roles are. Keep copies of all reports and follow up with phone calls if you're unsure of anything. Never sit with information provided to you about your child that you are unsure of. Always clarify it for yourself, and the professionals are more than willing to clarify with you. So the supports that are out there, avail of family support services in your area who may be able to support you during your assessment journey and beyond. Familiarize yourself as parents with services such as MEHL, which is a TUSLA developed approach to help children in need of more than one service, or your assessment of need, which is the HSE-led process of needs assessment, or again, your CDNT, which is your Children's Disability Network team. These may be services that may suit your needs as a family, and they may have that elusive support that you need. Get to know the different roles and responsibilities of every professional in your team if you are already engaged within a team. Inquire about your financial supports, such as your domiciliary care allowance, your carer support grant, carer's allowance, carer's benefit, your household benefits payment, or your ICTC, which is your incapacitated child tax credits for those of us that are working. It's really important to remember that many of these supports, particularly the financial supports, do not need a diagnosis to be awarded. So if your child requires supports over and above that of another child their age, then you have the right to apply. You do not have to wait for your final diagnosis. Validating your feelings as a parent is really, really important, because we go through a roller coaster of emotions when our young children are waiting assessment, conclusion, or diagnosis. So having a positive outlook is very empowering for both children and parents alike. But how do we get, how we get to that stage will only stem from validating and understanding our feelings regarding our child. So we need to understand their needs. We need to understand our needs, your family's needs, why is there a need for assessment, the diagnosis, or indeed just our parenting as a whole, and how we are managing maybe some challenges throughout that period of time. It's really common to feel frustrated, impatient, lonely, unsure, angry, anxious, or even sad, guilty, and confused. And many parents go through, so many different emotions throughout this time, and it is completely typical. It can be a time where we as parents need as much support as our children, and we should try, where possible, to lean on our support network and talk about our feelings. It's really important that you have your own support network, whether that's friends or family, and talk about your feelings. We need to take one step at a time. Try to focus on the here and now, not to look too far down the road, because that can be quite daunting and can be quite frightening for some parents. So focus on your child in the here and now, and don't focus on their challenges. Try not to compare one child to another, or compare them to their peers or to their siblings. Take one day at a time. Try to stay in the present and not look to what the future may look like. The world is your child's oyster, regardless of diagnosis. Look after yourself. Self-care is probably the biggest gift that we as parents can give to our children. When we look after ourselves, we are in a much better condition to be able to look after our children. So remember, I like the lantern idea. An empty lantern provides no light. Self-care is the fuel that allows your light to shine brightly for both you and your child. So if we as parents and honor your needs alongside your child's needs to protect your growing relationship and their development, you will flourish together during this time. But please take some time to yourself to look after you. So looking at our child and looking at individual differences through a strengths-based lens is really, really important and really beneficial, particularly for your child. Try to be aware of how we may highlight our child's individual differences, particularly to others. Sometimes we use words to explain behaviors that we feel are maybe not really typical, or that they're not really appropriate. I suppose things we say like, "Oh, Michael never stops," or "Michael's non-verbal." Develop a more positive soundbite that reframes your child in a positive way. Learn how to talk about your child in terms of his strengths, and this will positively affect how others perceive your child and how your child sees themselves. So rather than saying, Michael or Alana never stops, or, Michael's non-verbal, or Michael can't talk, today Michael is not using his words, but he's really, really excited and really enthusiastic to explore the shop or the environment. Reframe their behavior and their presentation in a positive light, because it's amazing how that reframing of positivity can lead to how other children and other adults perceive your child. Try to move away from our negative explanations if possible. So pay attention to why you're working on particular skills with your child. So if we are, are we looking at social skills? Are we looking at speech? Question yourself as a parent. Why am I working on this particular skill? Why do I want this to improve? Are we as parents being fueled by the need to fit in, or for our child to show more typical behaviors? Or is it just to provide your child with the tools that they need to be successful with their differences? And I think the latter is so important for a child that does have differences. We do not need our child to fit in. We need them to be successful with their differences in their own right. So providing our children, regardless of their needs, with the tools and therapy that they need to be successful with their own wonderful little unique differences is a message that's invaluable to our children. These positive messages will be internalized by the kids and become a catalyst for them to be the best version of themselves, because they will understand that their differences are positive things and it's part of them and they are loved regardless. So a few top tips. Repeating your child's story over and over again can be very frustrating for parents. I've been there. So, make a list or your own report and give copies to all involved. Add and retract as your child changes and develops. This helps greatly with new forms or paperwork that's needed and any updates needed for new or emergent supports, because you will find that there is a lot of repetition. So, make a list and have your own report. Personal passports are a great tool for new situations or anyone new involved in your child's care. A personal passport is simply a small book consistent of your child's personal information, your own expertise on your child, because remember, as a parent, you are the expert on your child, but your personal passport that you make for your child will mean that the personal passport is the one that has the most insight into your child and has the most up-to-date and it's the most supportive for new situations. There's nobody else involved with your child that has the access to how your child changes and develops at a daily rate, and their likes and their dislikes and their triggers and their limits. And, there's so much information that you can provide. So constantly updating their personal passport is really, really, really beneficial to anybody that comes on board or anybody that's working with your child on a daily basis. Practical steps that we can do: work really closely with creche, play school or school. And remember, support can be put in place in these settings based on need rather than diagnosis. So if there is no diagnosis, if you still are waiting and you're on a long waiting list and you don't have your diagnosis, please speak to whoever you are involved with. Be proactive, don't wait. Supports can be put in to help your child in these environments. Early intervention is key, and it can be assessed on just need rather than diagnosis. So talk to whoever it is that you are involved with. Also talk to other parents who may be in similar situations. Meeting other parents can be a really great avenue to hear useful tips and finding out about local services and learning just strategies that have worked for other parents on common issues that we as parents with children with additional needs come up against. You can find some really, really good solutions through other parents. And the fun stuff, I think it's really important when we have a child that's facing some difficulties. It's really important that we don't forget the fun stuff. Play is the human right of every child. It is the work of the child and it should be facilitated and encouraged always. Research has proven that it takes over 400 repetitions to make connections and synapses in the brain, unless it's done through play, and in which case it only takes between 10 and 20 repetitions. So if you're trying to teach your child anything, through play is the way to do it. It's a much shorter time. 10 to 20 repetitions compared to 400 is a lot of time and a lot of repetitive behavior. So really ensure that play is a massive part of your child's day. Use approaches like the backward chaining approach to play or activities that are proven difficult. So if your child has a difficulty with shape sorters, if your child has a difficulty with jigsaws, backward chaining simply means that the parent does the most difficult stages of the activity and the child does the last easiest stage. So if your child is struggling with a 6-piece jigsaw, for instance, we would encourage parents to build 5 pieces and leave the 6th piece out. So your child is, not faced with a huge task. He's only faced with one fitting up the piece. When he gets that piece into place, then it's quite instant gratification, and he's completed the puzzle. And once he gets used to doing the 1 piece, then you can build 4 pieces and leave 2 pieces out. So rather than starting the other way, do the backward chaining approach, and you can apply backward chaining to anything: getting dressed, brushing teeth. Let them do the easiest bits, and you help them with the hard bits. Play is the best and easiest way to learn, so it should be a priority for all children. play can come in many forms, and for children that may have additional needs, play can look different. It can look different than typical play that you might have seen with their siblings or their peers. And it's really important that we understand that that is okay. Play comes in all different forms. Let your child play in a manner in which they're enjoying themselves, they're having fun, and they're relaxed. If they're lining up toys, if whatever it is they're doing, if they are having fun, let them play. So when we talk about play, I always think about the senses and how important our 8 senses are. So we all have 8 senses: our touch, our taste, our sight, our hearing, our smell, our balance, and our movement, and our interoception. So all of those pretty self-explanatory, apart from the last one. The interoception sense is how we as children understand that we are hungry, thirsty, or maybe need to go to the toilet. All of those internal signals, you know, oh, I know I'm tired, or I need to use the bathroom. So how to encourage children to understand their senses and the signals that the sensory system are sending to them. So we need to do this through loads of sensory play. Sensory play is so important for all children in the early years and throughout life. Sensory play used to be is used to describe any activity that stimulates a child's senses. So nearly everything is sensory play. Sensory activities encourage children to investigate, encourages them to explore, create, and play. And those 4 aspects of play are really, really important, particularly for children with additional needs or children with challenges. When we can investigate, explore, create, and play together, we are using so much of our brain and body, in fluency together, that we're creating loads of neural pathways in the brain to increase brain development. So sensory activities are hugely important. For families and children awaiting assessment, play and sensory play is probably one of the best outlets to explore and develop together, which will really, really scaffold and strengthen your child's development going forward in all areas. Sensory play aids speech, it aids communication, their physical development, their social development, their emotional and intellectual development. And it also provides that fluency in learning that is actually unable to be reached by other methods of learning and teaching. So do make sensory play part of your child's day. And when I talk about sensory play, like, what does it look like? You know, messy play, outdoor play, barefoot play, movement play, water play, things like that. Loads of balance play, touch and taste play, all the old back to basic stuff that we all used to do years ago. Anything that your child is actively engaged in and enjoying is sensory play, because they're going to be using all their senses when they're actively engaged. Sensory play has endless options, but just, keep an eye out that your child is having a nice balanced sensory play. It's sometimes termed as a sensory diet. So have a look that their day is filled with play activities that will help all of the 8 senses. So sensory play, as we know, is crucial. It builds really strong neurological connections, which provides children with the skills to respond to the information received by the brain. And this is crucial as our children grow older. We want our children to be able to respond to what they have been told. So sensory play is going to give them a good, strong base to understand that. And another side effect as such of sensory play is the development of our gross and fine motor skills and our problem solving skills. And those 3 things equip children with the tools to integrate with their peers in school settings, in play schools, and in social situations. You often find that children with additional needs or some challenges will absolutely, always head towards the sensory tables when they're in play school in particular. So through sensory play, children are able to identify signals and feelings, sensations and emotions, which in turn will help with behavior and regulation techniques. And I'm sure you hear loads about, being able to self-regulate. Often children awaiting diagnosis or assessment have difficulty with regulation, and sensory play is an outlet that we can access whilst waiting on professional intervention to help us with regulation and co-regulation techniques. Sensory play will have a natural impact on regulation. So do try to include it in their day. Toileting can prove difficult for some children with additional needs, and the interoceptive sense is one area that can play a huge part in success in this area. So if you look at all the other 7 senses and make sure that there's loads of input for those 7 senses, your interoceptive sense that will help your toileting, your understanding when you're hungry and tired and thirsty or need the bathroom. If you combine loads of sensory play for the other 7 senses, your interoceptive sense just naturally matures. But most of all, it's really important to remember that our sensory play provides happiness and stress relief. And often children with challenges do be a little stressed. So we want to provide them with outlets to get rid of that anxiety and stress. Another really huge impact and important impact on development is movement. Never underestimate the power of movement for development. Movement is crucial for holistic development. It creates fluency of the brain and body, which in turn makes it easier for a child to learn new skills. And we as parents love to see our children, regardless of challenges, learn new skills. So any restriction of movement will always restrict development. And movement, we need to remember that movement is our first language and it's how we first communicate. So any restriction of movement will restrict language and may also impact on other important milestones. So get your children moving. Movement is key, particularly when you see a frustrated, overwhelmed, or indeed underwhelmed child. Please put movement into their day, and you will see them gradually kind of de-escalate and regulate. Unfortunately for us in digital times we're in, screen time has a massive impact on our children's movement. Screen time reduces everything that we know that's critical to brain development. We do have to be really careful as parents as to how much screen time our children are being exposed to. When we look at bonding, movement, eye contact, face-to-face verbal interactions, touch, exercise, free play, concentration, speech, and exposure to nature and the outdoors are all affected by the amount of time that our children spend on screens. And children with additional needs, they need that bonding and movement and eye contact and free play. They need it more than typical children. So try to balance screen time if possible. We do have a new generation of scrollers. It's impacting on our young children's left to right and horizontal visual fields. So we need to be able to read from left to right and horizontally. And unfortunately, all our new scrollers are, they're very much top down, and it's a vertical visual field that our children are now developing, and that does not help with their academics as they grow older. Screen time negatively impacts whole brain integration and healthy development of the frontal lobe. For your child's frontal lobe to develop, it needs normal, natural human interaction. And we know on screens we don't get human interaction. So just to remember that the frontal lobe in a young child lies dormant whilst they're on screens. Screen time can absolutely precipitate regression with children that are experiencing challenges, because sometimes they can become very much overwhelmed. They can, I suppose, go to the tablet or the TV to try and shut out what it is in their environment that's overwhelming them. So the screen time can, slow them down with their development. It can definitely add to repetitive behaviors, and it can further restrict interest going forward. And unfortunately, it does act as a stimulant and trigger aggression. So it's really important for our children with additional needs that we balance screen time as best possible. It also has a negative impact on sleep and the ability to self-regulate. Try a balanced approach to screen time. That's really all I can say. Explore things like electronic fasts, and during your electronic fasts, look out for changes in your child's behavior during these times, and take note, see, what type of impact did it have. So moving on from screen time, because it had such an impact on speech, communication, and behavior, it's important that we focus on positive positives and build skills from our children's abilities. We need to know as parents the differences between receptive speech, which is the speech they understand, the expressive speech, which is the speech that they can say, and functional speech, which is the conversational speech. We need to know the differences between speech and communication, verbal, non-verbal, pre-verbal, or non-speaking, and know that situations and children can change at any time or at any stage. Non-verbal now does not mean non-verbal in the future. Pre-verbal or verbal now does not mean verbal in the future. We need to stay in the here and now with our child and use as much supports in a rich learning environment at home to support our children in their speech, communication, and behaviour. Using visual aids and pictures and actions or signs if and when necessary is really important. Do not shy away from additional methods to help speech. Often parents are worried that if they introduce pictures, it'll hinder speech from development, but actually all they're doing is supporting speech and understanding for that child, and it will only serve to aid understanding, which is the best platform for expressive speech. Once your child understands what words mean, it's more likely that they will use speech. So if you are using additional visual aids and pictures, that's absolutely great. Be clear and specific in your own language to your child, and try to gain attention before having a conversation with your child or before you are asking or instructing anything. Do not demand eye contact. Attention can be given without eye contact. Often, you know, there's a lot of emphasis put on the need for eye contact, but often eye contact for a child can be extremely overwhelming. And when they're trying to concentrate on the words spoken to them and their meaning, if they have to concentrate on their eye contact, often they miss the meaning of what has been said. So there is no need to demand eye contact. You can get a child's attention without demanding eye contact. Remember to be patient. It's not always easy, but it's really important because every child is different. Oral muscular exercises can be of great benefit in developing speech, and that's just anything that will encourage the mouth to move. So I have just a few up here, but there's endless oral muscular activities that you can try to help speech. So blowing bubbles, sucking or blowing through a straw, because that helps the lip seal around the mouth and it builds up the muscles in the tongue and the cheeks. Brushing your teeth, your tongue and your cheeks. We like to build up an awareness of the inside of the mouth to help speech. Chewing and different textures, really important. You can use jewelry, which is children's designed jewelry as such that can go into the mouth and it's safe to chew. And don't forget music, rhyme, and repetition. That's really important. When we have like rhythm and rhyme, it's much easier to speak, because we can, you know, we can hear the words. So rhythm and rhyme is really, really important, because sometimes you'll have children that will sing an awful lot less stress than when they're talking. The talking takes maybe more stress, whereas singing and music and rhyme and repetition is a lot easier, and that's because of the fluency. So if you look at the movement and all of that, how that impacts on fluency is so important. So managing challenging behavior, you know, this goes for every child. Every child has challenging behavior. It's not just children that are waiting assessment or diagnosis, but children can show some form of challenging behavior that is difficult for us as parents and caregivers to manage. So it's important to try and manage these behaviors for everyone involved and not wait until assessments have been done, because assessments can take time. And, you know, in the moment, you as a parent, you know, you're the expert on your child. So you want to be able to put into place some strategies that work for both you and your family and your child. So the key to managing behavior is never in the assessment or diagnosis. You know, when you get your assessment or diagnosis, or possibly a conclusion that, you know, there is no diagnosis to be had, but you're still having challenging behavior, you know, the piece of paper that'll give you a diagnosis does not solve the challenging behavior. But the key to solving your challenging behavior is in our connected relationship with our child and our understanding of their behavior, their triggers and their limits. And we as parents are the best place people to be able to do so, because we are with our children, and most of the time we have great opportunity to be able to identify what can trigger them and what are their limits. Tantrums and meltdowns need to be simply looked at as an outer expression of an inner feeling that has got just too much for a child to manage. You know, we've got to look at them through just practical terms and forget the negativity around tantrums and meltdowns. If we can find the source of the challenging behavior and attend to it, the outward challenging behavior will decrease. So if it's biting, if it's kicking, if it's spitting, if it's, you know, banging their head, there is always a source. If you can identify the reason, then you will reduce the challenging behavior. So it's all down to us as parents to be able to observe, find that trigger, and that outward behavior then will decrease in time. It's an important coping mechanism when a child has a challenging behavior or a meltdown. It is simply just a coping mechanism. They've lost control, they can't do anything else, and this is how they're going to actually get through the negative feelings that they're feeling. So reframe how we view challenging behavior. That's how we make progress with challenging behavior with our children. We need to ask ourselves, do we see challenging behavior with negative eyes and see it as attention-seeking behavior? How many times have we termed behavior such as meltdowns or tantrums as attention-seeking behavior or controlling behavior? Or do we see it through positive eyes and see it as connection-seeking behavior? Once we see it as connection-seeking behavior, I think we change our perspective very, very quickly. Connected parenting sees all behavior as communication. What is my child trying to communicate to me, and why? So become an avid observer. You know, once we use our observation skills to really see and understand what's going on for a child, we start to see the messages in their communication and in their behavior that will help us find long-term solutions or coping mechanisms. There may not always be a solution for a behavior, but we need to be able to give, children coping mechanisms for their responses. And that's really important to children that have additional needs, because there will be triggers that they need to develop coping mechanisms for. So a child's challenging behavior can be for many reasons, and that's really important that we remember. It could be because we have developmentally inappropriate expectations, that they're just not ready for what it is we're expecting of them. The need for personal power. Absolutely, every child needs personal power, so they're going to push your buttons. Lack of skills, they just haven't developed those skills as yet. It could be an unmet physical need, it could be an unmet emotional need, it could be a sensory issue, it could be frustration or overspilling emotions, it could be confusion, stress, overwhelmed, it could be tiredness or fear. If we really watch as parents and really observe, we will look below that surface of that outward behavior and we'll see the key underneath. The key is underneath the surface for sure. So be your child's anchor. We need to aim to respond to our children in a connected way to help them grow and develop. Co-regulation is how we help our children self-regulate. It's our job as parents to stay with our children when they're in a tantrum, meltdown, or distress state. Please do not send them away. Please do not remove them. Match their intensity with your calm. Match their loud with your quiet, and match their rough with gentle. Always, as a parent, model the behavior you want to see. If your child's dysregulated, be regulated yourself. Never leave a distressed child alone, and always respond to your child when they're in a distressed state. Never ever doubt the need to connect to your child. Connection before correction. Remember, when what goes up must come down. So de-escalate first and deal with correcting the behavior that was challenging second. It's always secondary. Connect first, de-escalate first, and then look at how can we correct that behavior? How can we make sure that behavior doesn't happen again? Find the trigger, look under the surface. Be really patient. It takes approximately 3 weeks to change a behavior or to make it make or break a habit. But it takes over 2 months to make that new behavior part of your child's automatic behavioral system. So you're looking at, approximately 3 months when you're looking at trying to change behavior. So don't expect immediate changes. be patient, but it's really beneficial if you can just, you know, put that time in, because it absolutely will help change behavior. Fight, flight, freeze, or flock. Before tantrums or meltdowns occur, children who are struggling may show signs of flocking. And, you know, I think once we as parents are kind of shown how to look out for flocking or to become aware of flocking, you can see it quite clearly. This is where our children may start to cling to us, where they seek extra connection, where they stay close, where they retreat, where they seek comfort, maybe slow down or speed up, or engage in inappropriate actions, or use their tone of voice to show their discomfort. Often it can be described as that kind of whingy or whining stage, which I don't like those words, but that's often how it can be identified. And it's simply, you know, our children are telling us very clearly there that they feel unsafe, they feel unsure, they feel unhappy, but they're just not yet out of control. So these are their signals and their signs. So we as parents need to be able to recognize those times as times of struggle for our children and be available to intervene and provide signs of safety, love, and protection for them in that moment. And that should stop an escalation of a challenge behavior appearing if we can identify the flocking stages. Look out for the flocking stage. It's a great indicator that our children need us, and it gives us an opportunity to de-escalate any situation that may otherwise lead to challenging behaviors. And finally, awaiting assessment and diagnosis is a very challenging time, and awaiting access to services can be exhausting and frustrating. But you know, you already have access to the most wonderful, best, and most important aspect of your child's journey, which is your relationship with each other and your home learning environment. Trust your instincts and share your knowledge and thoughts. Don't be afraid to try new things and new approaches. You are the expert on your child. No professional is going to come in and spend as much time with your child as you will. So you know, use that time to your advantage. Become an avid observer of your child's natural behavior and keep loads of notes. It's difficult to remember everything when we're asked to provide accurate information at clinics and appointments. So keep notes and you know, keep them all together. See differences through positive eyes. See a child differently. See a different child. Remember, differences are not negative traits. They are just simply differences. And although consistency and routine are vital for all the big stuff in a child's life, adapting and being flexible for the small stuff is just as important, particularly with children with additional needs and challenges. And that's why I always put up the palm tree. Remember the palm tree as the parent. The palm tree survives the storm because it bends in the wind. Trust your own instincts. You know what is best for your child in that moment. So just a wee simple recap. Take control of your own journey, validate your feelings and express them to all involved in your child's care. Keep reports and passports and update them regularly. Ask questions of every professional and be fully informed always. Seek family support services where necessary and be aware of your rights to welfare and financial assistance. Adapt a strengths-based approach to parenting. Please see additional needs through positive eyes. Remember the importance of self-care. That's the biggest gift that you can give to your child, that you are well cared for. Remember the importance of play, movement, sensory diet, and speech activities. See challenging behavior through a positive lens. Remember to connect before you correct. Look below the surface of your child's outward behavior. You will find the solution is there. Look out for the flocking behavior and become an avid observer of your child's presentation. Have fun with your child and enjoy your journey together. Do not forget the fun. It's really important, particularly whilst you're waiting for assessment and diagnosis. We as parents are best placed to provide a positive, progressive period of rich learning during this time. We are the experts. And if all else fails, when we feel a little bit stressed, try to remember the palm tree. So that is the end of tonight's presentation. Thank you everybody for staying with me. And if there's any questions, guys, you can pop them up to me.
Hey, Helga, we've a few questions coming in, so we'll just start off with the first one. I was recently refused DCA twice, even though my girl has very high needs. The medical assessor said maybe if I had a diagnosis, any advice? I feel broken.
Yeah, Nicole, I have come up against this so much, and it's unfortunately the system is a little bit broken when it comes to domiciliary care allowance. You know, you do not need to have a diagnosis. Yeah, have you, I wonder a little bit more information there. Have you had assistance? Have you had anybody outside come in and try to help you with your domiciliary application? Sorry.
So maybe Nicola, if you want to add something to that, and we could come back to it then maybe.
If we just had a little bit more information, my information, if Nicole doesn't want to give any, any further information, my mobile number is there, and I would be willing to discuss a domiciliary application with Nicole outside of the webinar, and to point her in the right direction if that's of any benefit. Because there's a lot I would need to know to be able to answer that sufficiently. So Nicole, if you take my mobile number there and just give me a wee text, I will give you a ring.
That's great, Helga. Nicole, I hope that's okay with you. And we'll move on to the next one. Helga, this is just a long one, so bear with me. Yeah. My daughter is 11 years old and has been assessed and has dyslexia and dyscalculia, and recently has been diagnosed with dyspraxia and developed bad stress and social anxiety 2 years ago. She is getting weekly help with anxiety with a lovely psychologist and is coping well. She has said that sometimes girls can mask autism and has suggested assessing her for autism, and we're in the process of getting her assessed. I've done the parents' questionnaire but didn't add up as having autism. My question is it common for girls to develop autism later? Nothing was picked up as a child, but now she finds it very difficult to make eye contact and is having more meltdowns. I'm worried that another diagnosis will make her worse. Do I have to tell her she's getting assessed for autism, and can parents go in for an assessment? Many thanks.
Okay, there's a lot there. Yeah, it's not, if it is an autism diagnosis, the autism would have always have been there. Girls in particular, particularly girls that are verbal and very competent. It's, what's the right word? It can be more prevalent there, but again, it's masked. The fact that she's having more meltdowns and as time goes on, it's usually down to just the stress in the system for all these years that that your child has been masking and trying to cope. And as they get older, there's a lot of outside influences that cause that stress to be more prevalent. So it's completely individual, up to yourself if you want to tell her that she's been assessed for autism. But your psychologist would, would certainly work alongside that with you and work out the best way to express things with her, and and what it is she can and can't cope with. And at 11 years old, it would be very much an age appropriate conversation. It wouldn't be the conversation that we would be having as adults. It would be very much age appropriate. So, again, it's down to the parents. But again, you have a great opportunity here. You know your child so well. You can see that there's changes. You can see that there's a lot of stress, that there's more meltdowns. So again, it's looking below the surface, trying to find out, trying to pinpoint what her triggers are, and talk to her about her triggers rather than her assessments or her diagnosis, because her triggers and her limits will help you provide an environment that reduces that stress for her. But certainly work closely with your psychologist to work out what way you want to talk to her about her assessment or diagnosis in the future. But certainly I would be looking below the surface and trying to pinpoint her triggers and her limits for now to try to reduce her stress.
Okay, thank you, Helga. Next question. My son is 2.5, is awaiting assessment. Should I wait until he is assessed before I start him in play school, or should I start him now soon?
Danielle, there really is no yes or no answer. You are the expert on your child. If you feel that he would benefit from the social interaction, you know, if his attachments are okay, if he's happy to maybe go into play school, if you feel it is the right thing for your child, then go ahead. If you feel he needs to wait another year, that's absolutely fine too. It depends on what it is that you would like for your child. Do you want more social interaction? Are you able to be at home with them? Can you, you know, have you got plenty of time that you can create that rich learning environment for him? Don't question yourself. You know, you're the expert on your child. Try to obviously speak to whoever it is that's involved with you, whether it is your PHN or, you know, even speaking to some of the play schools. Go in and have a look around the play schools and you'll know yourself, you know, what is the best fit for your child in particular. But, you know, there's no clear answer, but I would certainly trust your own judgment and seek expert advice, you know, ask questions.
Okay. And the next one, Helga, is my 3-year-old boy hits himself. I cannot see a pattern as to why he does it. Sometimes it's because I've said no or taken his dummy away. He's not talking, but has lots of words. I take the dummy away, otherwise I wouldn't hear words. Sometimes he just hits himself in the car or when he's happy in the garden. So there's no pattern. Is there anything I can do to help him? Do I allow him to hit himself?
Okay. You don't like to see him hitting himself for starters. You know that it's distressing to watch your child hurt. If there was a diagnosis there, is the dummy a very important thing for him? Does he need, you know, does he need his dummy all the time? Is he hitting himself for stimulation? Is there something that you can, like, does he enjoy it? You know, often like deep pressure, if a child is hitting themselves, they love to feel that their body being touched and pressure on their body. So maybe doing some deep pressure exercises or weighted lap pads or weighted blankets. Contact your OT. They would certainly give you loads of deep pressure exercises that would be safe for a 3-year-old boy that you can do with him, and that maybe will give him the impact on his body that he needs. Because if he's hitting himself and he's doing it a lot and he's enjoying it, well then he needs further impact on his body. So I would be definitely contacting my OT to look for deep pressure exercises, and I would also be looking at including much more movement in his day as well. Bouncing, you know, that kind of anything with balance and impact. So maybe trampoline, bouncing, swings, slides. Excuse me. So yeah, I think that answers that one.
Okay. I have a 7-year-old with ASD diagnosis, which we got done privately last year. We have been advised to get an ADD and ADHD assessment now. Should the assessment last year have picked up on the ADD and ADHD?
Yeah, no, not necessarily, Maxine. Often the ASD can be so overpowering that the ADD or ADHD assessment, you know, it comes secondary. So no, not necessarily. That would sometimes be normal enough that the ADHD assessment would come down the road.
Okay. There's no more questions in at the moment, Helga. I suppose just finally we'll put it out there. Is there any other questions that you'd like to put in for Helga before we get finished up? Also, you see there a poll has been put up just with 2 very short questions. It'd be just really helpful for us if you could complete this poll, just so we have going forward know what works for talks and all the rest. Okay, so Helga, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, if for the first lady that was asking, you know, certainly please do contact me. And I'll help you with going forward with your domiciliary care.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you everyone very much.
There's just, sorry, Michelle, there's just one other question after coming in.
Oh,
If I
sorry.
want my 4-year-old assessed for 3 different things, do they have to all be done separately? Sorry, that was just one that's just came in late.
Okay. No, they don't all have to be done separately. Onto the CDNT, and then they will take it from there. So, you know, with your Children's Disability Network team, they will work out where to go with the different assessments.
Okay. Great, and just somebody else saying thanks very much. It was very helpful, Helga. So just to finish up, thank you everyone for joining the talk here this evening. And thanks to Helga for an absolutely brilliant talk, so informative and very valuable information in there. So if everyone would like to keep an eye on the Parent Hub Donegal Facebook page, we do have lots of other talks going on, so please keep an eye on it. And thank you again for joining this evening.